So, hello everyone. Today we are seeing the implementing the user authentication and authorization, how we can configure for our organization using the Azure Active Directory. So here my introduction are myself Shadab Hasan. I am a Microsoft certified trainer having 14 years of experience with Microsoft technology. What is identity and how authentication and authorization helps us to secure our environment? Okay, so anyone want to just give input? What is the authentication and authorization? Whatever you know about authentication and authorization. Any input before we start?
Yeah, authentication is like an access to the resource, just like a login and password.
Okay.
Whereas authorization is a privilege to access particular thing inside the resource, like a administrator, or it's kind of role. Authorization is kind of role.
Okay. So authentication basically who you are. So application asks you who you are to establish the connection. Okay, so you give your login ID password and you authenticate with third party as like single sign-on application and all those things. You provide your authentication and you log into application. After logging, what level of access you have to perform any kind of changes or what level of access you want to do. Okay, let's suppose that admin log into the same portal having the multiple level of access, but being a contributor or just a user, you will not be able to do all the access. So that we will understand how authentication authorization works with AD. Okay, so I just wanted to show you Azure Active Directory. There is a two-way which you can access. Either you can go here and search for Active Directory. So here comes the Azure Active Directory. Or you can go to aad.portal.azure.com. So this is again an additional portal which actually refers to the portal.azure.com, but there is an additional URL has been created to maintain all Azure Active Directory. Okay, so if you go to this platform or either from Azure Active Directory, you can go ahead and access those applications. Okay, so here you just go and create your users. Okay, you can create your users, you can create your groups. Okay, you can give your some application access as well where you want to use Azure Active Directory, like you have to register your application inside the Azure Active Directory. That is called app registration. So you will be registering your application and you will be using those in the your Active Directory in your application. Okay, so just I want to so I'll just show you some diagram which will be let's suppose that okay I have one application www.so.com. Okay, let's suppose that this is the application which I have deployed in Azure Pass. Okay, we have seen that how we can deploy on Azure Pass as a service. So this application I have created and deployed in the Azure portal. Okay, and let's suppose I have my on-premises directory.
Shadab, you're breaking very badly.
Is it for everyone?
Yeah, for everyone.
Okay. Hello. Is it fine now or still?
Yes.
That's fine. Okay. Okay. So, like I want to connect this application to my Active Directory to get authenticated. Okay. So this environment, this website is there in Azure, and this is there in on-prem. Okay. This is the two difference. Okay. Can we connect? The question comes here. Can we do connection between on-prem and Azure Active Directory? Okay. So what we have to do basically for any scenario, if we need to sync our Active Directory to the Azure. Okay. This is Azure. And let's suppose that we have to do to create Azure Active Directory. And then we have to connect this application to the Azure Active Directory. Okay. And then Azure Active Directory will connect to the on-premises. Okay. So what will happen? How this connection will happen? Generally, you have seen many organizations will have a single sign-on page where you will have to enter your organization password, and then it will be authenticated and it goes. So generally what there is called ADFS. ADFS, which they configure in your on-premises. Okay. So whenever the user are going to access this application, they will come to the Azure Active Directory, then it goes to your Azure Active Directory Federation Services, and that Active Directory Federation Services connects to on-premises. So there is a synchronization process which we have to establish from the on-premises to the Azure. Okay, so let's suppose that I need to move our on-premises Active Directory to the Azure Active Directory. That we can do, and we can configure using the AD sync. Okay, there is a Azure AD Connect which we have to install in on-premises, and which will sync all the objects like user, groups, and all the server information. All this information from the AD will sync to the Azure Active Directory using the AD Connect. Okay, and then you will be then next the question comes: do you want to sync your password also from the on-premises to the Azure Active Directory? Okay, if you want to sync, you can move your password as well, but there'll be chances to, if anything happen in the cloud and your password got compromised and everything, so that will be challenging. So that's comes the ADFS that helps you, like whenever the user goes to Conteso and enter his username password, it get authenticated, comes to the Active Directory. Active Directory does a first level of check, and then it's sent to ADFS. ADFS is like you might have seen there is a page which comes to the like organization page where you have to enter your organization username and password. Okay, so there is two things which you have to enter and then authenticate. Based on that, it goes to the on-premises and checks is this user ID password is valid, and then based on that it generates a token, which token will be transmitted back to ADFS. ADFS sends back to the Azure AD, and then you get authenticated. Okay, so this is your organization policy that you want to move the application to Azure, or they want to keep the password to local, and they just sync the user groups and system information. Okay, so again you have the filtering condition, like what you want to see. Like when you start migration from the on-premises to Azure AD, so you need to see that how many data your on-premises Active Directory contains. Okay, so based on that you can filter. Okay, now I want to move only user data, then you move your user groups, then you move other objects. Like you can do part wise. Okay, you don't have to push all the data at a time, which will be having performance issue or anything. So you do part by part migration using AD Connect, and then once the all objects are moved, then you start synchronizing. So AD Connect help us to synchronize your data between your on-premises and Azure Active Directory. Okay, and then you will be moving all the data. Okay, and the user password information you can keep it on your on-premises. And generally, this is the ADFS. Generally, most of the organization use. Okay, so ADFS is again, if you go and see the ADFS configuration. Okay, you can just Google. You will see here what happens. Generally, this is the single sign-on application will be created for your application, and then your application connects to the single sign-on and then goes to the your application. Okay, you can see here. So there is a federation like trust created between your cloud and on-premises. Okay, so there is a one like this. Actually, you have to configure everything. You have to create a server and configure ADFS over there, and then you should create a 2 server minimum to make your ADFS available always for your organization, and then you create deploy your ADFS application. There will be one application page will be there, which will be like authenticating your user ID password and then going to the on-premises, and then it will be returning back the token to Azure Active Directory. So this will happen with the ADFS. Okay, so your ADFS generates access token and send to the local AD, and after authentication, it will send back to the portal. Okay, so this is what Azure Active Directory Federation Service does.
I have question. It may not be relevant to Shadab here. Which scenario? Why the peoples are not moving their ID to direct Azure? Why they are keeping in on premises and doing? Is it the cost is the matter, or what is the?
No. Moving. See, generally people will move all the data, but except the password. So if you are not moving password and your application in an Azure and you want to authenticate, so you have to come to the on-premises. If you are moving password as well to Azure Active Directory on the cloud, then no issue. You will be authenticated here itself, and you will be able to log into contessa.com. Okay. So if you are not moving your password, then what you have to do? You have to deploy your ADFS. Okay. And ADFS will authenticate the password.
Okay, and is maybe the another scenario, maybe if organization what is the users are growing, then they can maintain their maintainability will be here easy. So that also may be one scenario.
Maintainability could be easy, but Azure Active Directory gives you the more feature than your on-premises Active Directory. So actually, this is the newer version which we'll be using. Okay. So if you are there, you can actually connect with Office 365, and you have the wide range of availability towards the connection to the different SaaS application and the different application. You'll have the variety of application to get connected. But if you have on-prem, again, you have the challenges like you have to come to Active Directory and you have to get authenticated. Okay, so that's why the company are moving their data like users and groups to the Azure Active Directory, but they want to keep the password in their servers, in their Active Directory. So that's what the ADFS comes in the picture here.
Yes, Shadab, this is Karthik. So I have one more scenario. I mean, I don't know who has asked this question, but
this is Narayan.
yeah, Narayan. Actually, in our company also the same situation happened. So there was some legacy code which is like used for about 20-25 years for authenticating. So they did not move that yet into Azure. So we developed few applications on top of it. So what happens is like the validation part is still on the legacy code. So that is where they are trying to move it, but initially for startup of the applications, they are having the validations and other core logics at their end only. So this is also, I mean, one kind of scenario why they can't directly go and authenticate with the AD account. And also, second scenario would be if suppose if we are developing any application that is client face, I mean that is exposed like it's open to everyone. Like we have some payment portal actually. So whoever uses our services, they will log in with their own credentials and they will do it. So in that case also we would not be having a control on like we will not have any directory created for those users. So in that case also we have we did not put that into Azure AD. Maybe Shadab can just tell if these scenarios are valid. But
That could be a scenario. Yeah. So, but if they want to connect anything which is there in Azure, like if you have deployed any application in Azure and you want to authenticate from your AD, like you want to give your application to only your premises user. So again, you need to do some configuration, like you have to expose your on-premises Active Directory towards the cloud or something, internet-facing application SSO, something like that you have to create, and then the external user can come. Like if I'm logging from my home to my company cloud. Okay, so how that will be authenticated? Again, you need to create some layer of application or some API which will be connecting to the on-premises to get the data. Yeah, that's fine for legacy application. If you have legacy application and you don't want to move, that's could be a scenario. Yeah.
Thank you, Karthik, sharing your experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
Shadab, one more. Whose responsibility is to configure this ADFS? Is it a cloud administrator or on-prem administrator?
Oh, see, ADFS will be configured from your application, your organization administrator. Okay, so you need to configure your server, and you have to open the port having public IP, and then that should be a load balanced. All those scenario you have to achieve actually. So federation.
Okay, what is the role of developers here then?
This role basically like how you can connect those only you have to basically learning as part of developer, and how
Okay.
this happens. But this configuration generally happens by the administrator. Okay. See, this is the architecture which you see here. So like you have public IP, and then some application which you are accessing, and then it's going to the another ADFS server. So like you have the two servers configured for the ADFS. Okay, so the load balance will have any of the server which is having ADFS get authenticated, and then that connects to your AD server. Okay, so this is the structure you have to create for your on-premises network. Okay, so you can see here, this is the Contoso application which is outside of your network, and then it's coming to your gateway, and then it's moving towards your application, and then you have the federation services which return to the public IP. So like this is the configuration which you have to do, and you have to do a setup for that. So this is like once you've done a setup for the ADFS, you have the one-page application which will be like single sign-on, and that will be authenticated from your Azure AD.
Okay, hope it's a one-time activity, right?
Yeah, one-time activity. So but this should be always available, like that you have to do, because if anything happen, then your complete organization will go down. Okay, so because your password you are getting authenticated from the server. So
cool. Thanks, Shadab.
Yeah. Okay, so moving towards the next slide. So here it's saying that Azure Active Directory, if you have, and you want to connect to any of the cloud network, Android application, Mac OS, Windows, on-premises app, and even your SaaS application you can connect. Okay, software as a services application, if you want to integrate those from your Active Directory, like I have the Office account and I want to give to my a specific Azure AD, Azure access, like, or if I have a team access or anything what I want to configure. So those I can go ahead and configure the in Azure Active Directory, and they will be able to access. So this is the architecture which shows. Okay. Next comes to the ADAL. This is called ADAL, Active Directory Authentication Library. Okay. So what it does actually, this is the library which gives you the access to connect your code to the Azure Active Directory. So here comes the developer role. Okay, so one of the person has asked the question that how this is coming to for the developer. Okay, so coming to this, like if you have a Java application and you are developing your application and you want to do authentication from your AD. Okay, so this Azure Active Directory authentication library gives you the API call, like you can do an API call and you can take a token and you can a refresh token, assign token. So those activity which you can do from your code. Okay, so this library you have to use, and like ADAL version 1.1 is available for the developers to authenticate the cloud or non Active Directory, which is on like in cloud, not on premises. So you'll be able to use and you'll be able to create those calls. Here comes the like this is the first. It's like initializing the authentication context. Okay, and so and then you'll be passing the authentication context and to ADAL. So just you have to create authentication context using ADAL authority, and this creates your token for you. Okay, you can see here we are passing the client ID, user ID, and resources, and that creates a token, and you can go ahead and configure those tokens. This is the evaluation. It's saying that earlier we had the Azure Active Directory 1.0, and next we got a Microsoft Identity version 2.0. Okay, so there is a two version available for the Azure Active Directory to call. Okay, so there is a called Microsoft Identity Platform. So just we saw that this ABAA, Active Directory Authentication Layer. In next slide, we will see that Microsoft Authentication layer, Microsoft Authentication also we have. Okay, so this is saying that Microsoft Identity Platform version 2.0 and Azure Active Directory version 1.0. Okay, so let's what this gives me you. This gives you to connect with your work and school account, like it's your office account and other things you can connect. But this gives you feature to connect with your Microsoft account, LinkedIn, Facebook, Gmail. So these authentication also you can do with the version 2.0. So this is the version 2.0. So Microsoft Identity overview, it's saying that you can write code, okay, and you can authentication any of the Microsoft Identity into your application. Okay, so you can just write some set of code and you can authenticate your application from the Azure Active Directory. Okay, that's a fully supported open source library. Open source library called Microsoft Authentication Layer. Okay, so you can use your Azure Active portal to register and configure your application. I'll show you how we can register your application. Okay, here comes your application registration page. Okay, so whenever we do your whenever we create application in the like earlier we have created this. Okay, in the when you create deploy your application, okay, web app in the Azure, okay, and you want to configure your application to be authenticated from Active Directory, you go there and just click your I want to configure with the Azure Active Directory, and that application will get registered automatically. here. But if you want to configure your some custom application which is not deployed here, you can go here and create your app registration here. Okay, you can give your test app registration, something name you can give. Here you will define like what level of authentication you want to configure. So account level, organizational directory, okay, single tenant. Then you have multiple tenant. Then you have multiple tenant plus Microsoft account, and you have personal Microsoft account only. So this you can define what level of authentication you want. So I want multi-tenant, and my Microsoft account also should be authenticated. Okay, and then you define here your web application. Another thing, you have a single page application and public facing application, like if you have deployed out of Azure somewhere in the on premises, but you have public IP opened up for that. That also you can authenticate using Active Directory. Okay, let's suppose I have the web application, and that web application name is http://www.xyz.com. So this is the application, like you can configure here, and you can define here, and you just click register. Once you register this application, okay, so it gives you a application ID, tenant ID, and URL. So you have the application client ID, you have application tenant ID, and using this, you can connect your application from your code, and you can use this for authentication purpose. So from the code, you need to pass these values, and client ID and URL and all those things, which client ID, you can take it here. Client ID will be unique for each application, and that you have to provide in your application code, and you will be able to connect via the Active Directory. So you can configure this application using the code. So that application you need to configure in Azure AD, and you are done with that.
Shadab, Karthik here. So, what is the basic difference between that single tenant and multi-tenant?
Single tenant means one organization, multi-tenant means multiple organization. You can say like that. Okay. So multiple organization email ID also can be authenticated on your application. Like you have deployed your AD, and your organization AD is having a different kind of email ID. You can say. We'll see here. Like I can show you. See here, this is called multi-tenant application, single tenant application. Okay, multi-tenant application, like you having the Microsoft.com/common. So in this URL, multiple person can come and get authenticated. Multiple organization can be done here actually. But here, if you talk about single tenant application, like one application only you are defining currently, so on Microsoft.com. So this is one application only get authenticated here. Multi-tenant means different application you are configuring here to authenticate from your Active Directory.
Okay, Shadab. I have one scenario. I mean, this is ongoing task that we are working on now in my company. So we developed an application, and we are already using Azure AD using MSAL, single tenant application. But now at the end, what we were told is like, I mean, it will be used by the client side, but those clients will not be part of our Azure AD. So in that
Okay.
case, what kind of, like, I mean, should it be like multi-tenant, or if it is multi-tenant, where are we going to save their AD credentials or something like that?
Okay, so they are not part of AD, but they want to access our application, correct?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so how they will be get authenticated?
Right.
somewhere we need, that's why I'm saying somewhere we need to configure their identity, or we need to sync their identity with our Active Directory. So we can add their Active Directory as well in our application, or in our Active Directory we can store. So what we can do, we can add a multiple organization and we can add their ID as well in Active Directory, which will be connecting from our, it will be going to our Active Directory. But for the user password, they again have to create something like ADFS, which I have told you, or some password sync has to happen for their password validation. Otherwise, they will not be allowed to access their application.
Okay, so they have to be part of our AD. I mean, even though it might not be a directly company's AD, but an external AD, or
Correct.
they might have some ADFS kind of setup. Like initial authentication will be done by our AD, but again their passwords and their things would be generated by the ADFS that is linked with our Azure.
Yeah. So actually what happened here, Azure Activity actually provide you a common authentication endpoint. Okay. So for the multiple tenant application, like if you are just asking that if it's accessed by the multiple organization, so they can give this like multi-tenant application. Okay, and once they comes here, then they can be authenticated from Azure AD based on their specific endpoint, or signing using the username password. So that can be done actually.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Shadab.
So coming back to here, so Microsoft Identity Platform overview, like it's giving me how we can use the Microsoft Authentication Library. Okay, so I'll come here actually. This is Microsoft Identity Platform, which gives you like whenever your application is getting authenticated, so you have Azure Active Directory ADAL. Okay, and again you have Microsoft Authentication Layer MSAL. So this is what I was talking. There is two actually library which is available with the for the identity, Microsoft Authentication Layer and Azure Active Directory. So this is used using version 1.0, and this is using version 2.0. This actually connects with Microsoft Authentication Library, connects with your work email ID, your personal email ID, as well as your social email ID like Facebook, Gmail, or any other identity provider which you want to use. You can use those. But if you are using Azure Active Directory Authentication Library, ADAL, so you will be only authenticated by your work email ID or official email ID. So that is the difference which Microsoft provides you. So there is two authentication layer which is available like identity provider. And next comes to the object in Azure Active Directory. There is a user principal and service principal. Okay. Whenever user principal, like I want to configure my application for the user principal or a service principal, so that you can define it here. Okay, let's suppose that I want to authenticate any of the application. Okay, let's go to one of the storage account. I have a one function app, and you go to identity. Okay, so you have here system assignment and user assignment. Okay, so this will cover in the next session when we go for creating a key vault. So what happens when you create a system identity? System itself goes and creates your identity for your application. So this is the unique identity across the application will be used for your authentication purpose. Another thing is user identity, where you will be creating identity for each of the application differently. See, like if I'm saying on and just saving, it will be creating. Okay, and if I go for user identity manage identity enables Azure Resource to authenticate the cloud services using Azure Key Vault without storing credential in the code. Okay, so I'll just move on here. this we have seen that like multi-tenant and single tenant, and this is the authentication for the 2.0, which I was talking about. There are different endpoint which you get. And see, this is the step which is saying for the application authentication. So you have to register your application in Azure tenant application. You get authorization code, and that access token you use in your application, and you can do that authentication. So this is the authentication flow which says here. Okay, let's suppose that you your tenant, and there is a common. Okay, there's two things which you can use for authenticate your organization. Then you browse, it goes to the web server. Web server goes here and does the authentication token, and token comes to the website. Again, website sends to the token for the validation, and validation comes back. So this is your application, then authentication happens, and then you have the web API, which is authenticating your token from the Azure Active Directory. Okay, so this is the actually diagram which shows how the authentication happens on the code level which you create. Okay. Service to service call, this is saying that you have the client application, you send to the Azure Active Directory, you get the token back, and again you go and access other API. Like if you have like any restricted API which you are talking about, like if you have the payment application or any of the application which you want to access, or any internal application which you want to access, you need to first authenticate with Azure AD, get the token, pass the token to the web application API, and then you get the response back to your application. So this is the typical structure which you will get. Common authentication flow, I'll just go to the diagram and show you. So there is interactive on behalf of client credential and device code. These are the four authentication flow which we have. So first of all, whenever the application wants to talk to any of the other application, this is like suppose that any other application which you have. We'll see Microsoft Graph in the next in this step only. So what happens when application goes and connects to the Azure Active Directory, then it's get, and then it goes to another application to access. Okay, so this is interactive. Okay, user using a browser and doing authentication from the AD and coming to the graph. This is on behalf authentication, like when application goes to Active Directory, comes back here, and then it goes to some service, and service also want to authenticate from the Azure Active Directory. Then service will go and authenticate to the Active Directory and comes back, and then it gives you the access to the Graph API. So this is on behalf of authentication, like someone is doing, like it's taking your token and passing it token to the Active Directory and getting it back authentication. Another authentication which comes to the client credential authentication flow, where admin creates go to the Azure Active Directory and store the identity with him. Okay, sometimes it happens with you have some certificate or client credential. Okay, and you store for some period of time. Okay, and then you pass those credential back. Okay, so just it's storing the credential for some period of time, and then it's passing to the application, and then your application is accessed. So this is the client credential authentication flow, which is and then another is device code authentication. Okay, so this is another type of authentication which says that the application requests a unique device code from the Azure Active Directory. Okay, and then user uses another workstation along with the device code to sign into the application Azure Active Directory portal. And next, third step, the organization application requires a token from the Azure Active Directory based on user signing in, and then it goes to the another application. So these are the four type of authentication which Microsoft recommend, like common authentication flow, which goes around the application. Another authentication, which is the certificate-based authentication, like you authenticate your request with the digitally signed, and you attach your certificate in the header, and then you pass to the application and do the authentication. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, Microsoft authentication layer. Just now we have seen that Active Directory ADAL, ADAL, Active Directory Authentication Layer. Now this is talking about the MSAL, Microsoft Authentication Library. So we have just seen this two type of library. What is the difference between these two library? You can see here, MSAL works on Azure Active Directory V2 endpoint. Okay. So, and ADAL works on V1 endpoint. Okay. V1 endpoint is only supports it doesn't support the personal email, personal account authentication. Like it doesn't take your normal Microsoft email account. It works with only your organizational email ID or your school email ID like that. But if you're using Microsoft authentication layer, it works with your um, organizational email ID as well as your Microsoft normal personal email ID or your any Gmail, Hotmail, or any other email ID which is associated, like social email ID, you can use it. So it's the same way it works for the ADAL, it works for the MSAL as well. So you just need to create your authentication and it works. So this is two services which we can use. So both can be used in your code, application code. You can use for authentication, MSAL or ADAR. So both is work similarly. So only small differences here. You get your personal email ID and authentication as well. So here you can see here. So this is the Microsoft Identity Platform where you have the social and personal email ID authentication. But if you are going for ADAL, you have the only work email ID. So this is the difference which we have. Anything you want to add up here or any question?
Shadab, Karthik here. So, I mean, from our experience, we first initially used ADAL library because our front end was Angular and we used to do an AD authentication. But most of the things we used to like we have to handle by ourselves. We have to like during refresh of token or like I mean those kind of things we used to do by ourselves. But MSAL, I mean, it does all everything by itself. We just need to invoke their methods. So that is one basic difference when coding we found out. And it is from Microsoft again. It's a latest one. I think it released last year or something.
Yeah, that is version 2.0. There is another thing like here when you go and register your application in Active Directory. In Active Directory registration process, like when you go and register your application, app registration. Okay, so here you get only the authentication with your Microsoft account. Okay, so again, if you want to use like your Gmail or anything, there is another which you have to do. Like you need to go and on my Gmail website. Like Gmail provides another authentication mechanism. Okay, so you can search for this one. Okay, and actually this gives you good documentation. Like if you want to validate your Gmail account, you want to give your Gmail user as well. You want to give access to your Microsoft any application. So there is a way which you have to go and add your application on Gmail, and they have also federation services and all those things. And finally, you add your Gmail authentication. Okay. So you authenticate everything on Gmail, and finally you configure your Gmail federation services in Active Directory. So that you can do Google Federation Services in Active Directory, and then you have the uh, uh, access to your application as well. So Gmail user also can go and authenticate using a Google Federation service via Azure AD, so that you can do it. So in Azure AD portal, you can go ahead and add Gmail, like Google Federation Services account, and then you can use it. So that also you can do it. Okay. So there is another topic which talks about the Microsoft Graph. Okay. So anyone heard about this Microsoft Graph?
Yes, Shadab.
If you can add some lines, how that helps in.
No much, but I somewhere in the application configuration, I have registration time I checked, but I don't have.
Okay. So actually, what Microsoft Graph gives you, like we have actually Microsoft Graph gives you a API kind of thing, which you can use to connect your Microsoft 365 services. Okay, so like Microsoft 365 provides you wide range of services. Okay, so what happens earlier when we don't have the Microsoft Graph, then what we have to do, we have to go and call each services different ways. Okay, like I want to get some information from SharePoint. Also, I want to get information from my email account. I want to get my calendar invites. There are several things which I want to do with Office 365. Okay, but Office 365 is wide range of platform, and you have multiple application deployed inside that. So actually, this Office Graph gives you the ability to connect with Office 365, Windows 10, and Microsoft Enterprise Mobility Security Suite. So what happens, like if I ask you to go read my application, like my Hotmail or Office email ID, and show me the top 10 email ID, and show me the next week meetings, like that configure. So what you will do, you have to call a different services to get the data, and you or display in one screen on one different widgets, so that you can do it. But this gives you to connect with different applications. Okay, and gives you the single interface where you can get everything as a API. Okay, so there is something called Graph Explorer. Okay.
Yeah, as I remember, basically we used to get to connect to Microsoft Teams maybe through some of the application, means dynamic CRM, and this will basically act as a mediator, correct?
Correct. So there is something called Microsoft Graph Explorer, and you can see here it's asking me to connect, and I can sign out. Generally, first time it asks to connect, so I'm connecting with my email ID, and this gives you API, one place API, and to connect a different variety of application. Like you can connect with SharePoint, you can connect with Teams, you can connect with Hotmail, you can get my email details. So everything you can get it. Okay, sign into the Graph Explorer. So you can see here, I can get my profile details, my mail, my photo, my reporting manager. So all those things associated with this email ID, I can get it. I can connect with Microsoft Teams, join my teams, member of my team. So all these information which you can get. Even you can go to the Outlook mail, you can get high importance mail and other things which you can connect. Even you can go to SharePoint, you can get the SharePoint users as well. So let's suppose that I want to get my Outlook mail. I just click on get my mails or forward my mail. So everything you can do it here. Okay. So everything you can like I want to get my profile. Okay. I run query, I get my profile here. If I want to get mails, you can go to the Outlook calendar, show me my events. Okay, so I'm getting my event. If I want to go and get my important mail, I get it. So this is like this gives you API. Okay, so you got this API, you can use this API and you can authenticate your application and you can. So just you need to call your Graph API and you get everything whatever is related to Office 365. So this is the feature, you get it in one place. And this gives you a feature like Postman, you can go ahead and query. So you can take this, you authenticate your username, password with from the Postman as well. You can run these queries and you can get the IP. So actually, this is the common API. You can go ahead and do a coding, you display on your application, and that's that you can do it. So this is the feature we get from the Graph. So this gives you like a wide range of things which you can do it. You have the Office 365, Windows 10, Dynamics 365, even the enterprise mobility, service and security. So all these things you can go ahead and get these details in one place from the graph data. Okay. So another thing, it gives you some of like these are the Microsoft.graph, Microsoft.graph, the authentication. This is like authentication where you have to pass the username password to authenticate from the graph, and then you call this Microsoft.graph to get your all the details from the graph. So this is again library is available, MSAL and Microsoft Graph library. So on this SDK you have to use and get it authenticated, and you can get the details. Even you, same thing I told you that to connect to the graph, so you have to get authenticated and then you use those codes to get the application from the graph or details, whatever you need. So this is the details which saying that authentication code, client credential on behalf of like what kind of authentication you want to connect and you want to use that, you can define it here. Okay, so make a request to the graph. See, this is the graph API and you request and get, so that you can do it. Oh, again, this I have already covered during the storage account actually. So again, it's added here how the authentication works from the storage account. This is what shared access signature, you create a shared access signature and you give it. So we have already covered this shared access signature where you can go and create your shared access signature based on what level of access you want, and you create your access and you give for the specific time and you set the expiry date and a start date, and based on that you can define your what level of access you want, write, delete. So all those access policy you can like configure from the SaaS token. So this is storage account access, then you can configure the policy and based on that it accepts. So we have the lab associated with this actually, and So this is using MSAL. So this you can do the lab, and which helps you how you can authenticate your application using MSAL.NET library, which you can use, and how that works actually. So just go through this. It will help you to understand how we can connect with the Active Directory and how we can authenticate our application. So this is the simple code which is there. And any question from this authentication, authorization, anything?